All right, Monday afternoon. Welcome to the Krug Show meets the Cohn Zone. Let's go. We got a lot to get to. 49ers in the offseason, the Super Bowl in the rear view, the draft and the combine all coming up. Let's go. Let's talk about it right here. All right, welcome to the Krug Show, of course, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Go get some brisket. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania, who's a great guy, at 831-521-5264. And we are also brought to you by BetUS. And they all have an online casino that we'll tell you about in a bit. But first, we welcome in Grant. Grant, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just booked my trip to the Combine. I'm going to be there for a full week. Never done it before, never been to Indianapolis before, but I love those Midwest cities. They're a lot of fun. So it'll be fun, the Indianapolis experience.
It'll be cold, but yeah. I think it's also pretty good trip as well. Let's start right there because
if you were going, would you bring your own stopwatch?
Yes.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Because it's just you might as well to see how close you could get to the guy doing it, especially since you can sit right there 20, 30 feet from it and boom, you look down. Yeah, I think I'd bring my own stopwatch. Why not? I'd also bring binoculars.
Yep.
Binoculars, a stopwatch, and probably some snacks. That's probably
Doritos. Sounds good.
it's gonna a lot of hours there watching guys. But let's talk about it because one of the first topics of the day is that Mama Bosa, Cheryl Bosa, put out a picture of Joey and Nick both in, or she didn't put it out in the. I'm not sure if she put it out in both in Niner uniforms, but. She definitely has ideas. This is via her Instagram. She had Joey in 97 and Nick in 97 and Joey in 99. What do you think? I mean, let's talk about that, Grant, off the start. I mean, should the Niners go after whether it be Joey Bosa, whether it be Max Crosby, whether it be Myles Garrett? Should they go after those guys? Should that be the plan? Should they sell out for that one great player, or should they, use their assets and their I guess their draft picks differently?
Well, I wouldn't exactly put Joey Bosa in the same category as the other edge rushers we're talking about. Maybe he used to be, but he hasn't been that in a while, and I think there's a reason why the Chargers are probably going to get rid of him. So Joey Bosa would be okay, but he misses a lot of time too. I actually do like the idea of them trading their first round pick for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. I know it seems irresponsible considering the team already is old and isn't necessarily one player away. But the way I look at it is you're entering year 9. You haven't won a Super Bowl yet. You do have this aging core. And if you miss the playoffs for a second straight season, I don't know, maybe Kyle Shanahan's gotten a verbal assurance from Jed York that he's fine. But if he misses the playoffs 2 years in a row, I would wonder if I was going to get fired if I were the head coach. So given that there's a little bit more at stake this year than there really has been for Kyle, why don't you, Joe, like instead of just banking on the team to get healthy and a rookie to improve the team, go get Max Crosby and definitely make the playoffs and definitely keep your job.
Okay. I love the first part of it, which is go get Crosby, go get Garrett. I love that because those guys are great. But then we get back into, okay, does Mark Davis want to send Max Crosby anywhere? He just hired Pete Carroll, who's an older defensive coach. I think if I was Pete, I'd be really fried if I got this job and then they traded my best defensive player. So that's one. But then the other one is, okay, if he wants to trade Max Crosby, does he want to trade him to the Niners? And the word that I heard was that if they were going to trade Max Crosby, it was going to take a bounty of picks. And then the Garrett thing's interesting because everybody would love to have Garrett. He's very favorable contract wise going forward. So I think it's like $6.5 million this year. So you got a really great player at a very cost effective price, which only means that I think his price tag is going to be extreme. I know lots of people who are saying go for Garrett, go for Bose, or go for Crosby are saying give the 11th pick. Okay. But what happens if the 11th pick has to be part of a 5 or 6 pick package? Do you still want to do it? Or would, because that 11th pick's got value for sure, but I'm seeing a bounty of picks for Crosby.
Garrett would each cost 2 firsts.
I would say at least.
At least 2.
Khalil Mack went for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. And or was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, and a fifth, or something like that. But he went for 6 picks, including two ones. I know Garrett's not on the rookie contract, so maybe his value is a little less. But he also is more proven, and he's got a real favorable cap situation in the present. So I don't know. I mean, if it's going to cost you the 11th pick, I'm fine. But if it's going to cost you the 11th pick among 5 other picks, I'm not fine.
At a certain point, you got to tap out. It's too much. But again, if it just feels like something Eddie DeBartolo would do. Oh, the best player in the league is available. Of course we're interested. We're the 49. Why wouldn't we be interested? It's either going to be us or the Cowboys who gets him, and it should be us. So that's the era of the Niners I grew up in. Of course they should be interested in freaking Max Crosby. He seems interested in them. Diamondor Lenore keeps bringing it up. Tabor Pepper was tweeting about it today, so it must be something they're talking about in the building. Why not?
Yeah, there's got to be something to it. There's got to be something to it. You would think
he's a great player. He's better than Bosa, my opinion.
Let me ask you this, because you know the Niners and you know the reporting around the Niners. Matt Mayoko, when the Myles Garrett thing was first broached, was like, yeah, I think the 49ers will kick tires, and they like to be in the deal flow, and they always like to keep up on what's going on and this and that. And then a couple days ago, he came out with a new video going, I've thought it over, and I think that that may be too rich for their blood, and this may not be the right timing. Do you think that's all Mayoko saying they should, it'll be interesting to see them kick tires, and then it's also all Mayoko saying that, it's not a fit? Or do you think somebody with the Niners whispered to him, hey, you know what? It's probably not a fit. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to speculate. We both know that Matty's incredibly connected, so we could guess, but it just seems to me that the Niners are gearing up to pay Brock, and that's going to be the big move of the offseason. And are they also going to trade for Max Crosby? Maybe Eddie would, but I don't know that the Yorks necessarily would or want to. I think they sort of want to tell everyone that they just need to get healthy. All they need to do is have a good draft, get healthy, pay Brock, and have organizational stability. I don't think there's that much pressure. I think the pressure's coming from Max Crosby. I think Max is over here being like, hey, I love the Bay Area. Hint, hint. I'm right here. I don't know. Interesting situation to be in.
I mean, Crosby is amazing, and him opposite Bosa would be incredible. And you'd have to combo block somebody on every snap. And if you have 2 guys on one defensive front that both need to be, doubled, that you're in a great spot. And we all know Robert Saleh wants to rush 4 and drop 7, so that's his MO. So I mean, a great defensive end definitely is what the doctor ordered. The question is, can they afford it? And my sense is that if Matty was initially saying, yeah, they might look into it, and now he's saying more along the lines of, hey, it's probably they depleted themselves on the Hargrave and the Lance move to such an extent that they probably can't afford this. I get the sense that maybe somebody said to him, hey, look, this is going to be very, very.
Was he talking
expensive.
about Myles Garrett in particular?
I think he was talking
because
about
the thing about Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, I'm looking at it, neither one has any guaranteed money left on their contract. So part of the issue could be they're both in the stage of their deal where they're angling for an extension. And so maybe the Niners feel if you trade for Myles Garrett, if you trade for Max Crosby, it's trading for them and extending them in the same offseason that you'd be extending Brock or an offseason later. And maybe they feel like we really haven't budgeted for another huge extension. They haven't.
It doesn't seem like the timing would be right for them to go for another individual making a ton. I have a realtor buddy who called me this morning and said that he knows that Brock is getting ready to close on a home. And he didn't say where, but he said he was here in Northern California. So I got to think.
Wouldn't you want to put pen to paper on your contract before doing that? There's no rush to buy a home.
I would think.
There's no rush, but hey,
but he also, I have no idea what the Toyota money is. Is Toyota paying him a lot of money? I mean, I
didn't think about the Toyota money, man. Brock could be set for life with that Toyota money. We don't know.
I mean, heck, if Mac
giving away cars, wow.
If Mac McClung can make more in the dunk contest than he did in his NBA career, maybe Brock can make more from Toyota.
Is that a real stat? Is that what? Has he made more from the dunk contest?
Yeah, he made 330,000 in the dunk contest and like 140,000 in his career.
That's pretty cool.
That's unbelievable. Let's talk about Purdy though for a second, because you had an interesting thing the other day that I saw, and I wanted to bring this up. You tweeted out Brock Purdy's passer rating by quarter.
This was just last season.
Yeah, this was just in 2024.
Yeah, but he was incredible.
Let me see if I can make this a little bigger and people could actually see it instead of me just stating it. Here, I'll just see if I don't know if I can do this. I probably can't. So I'll just read it. Basically, in the first quarter, his QB rating is 106.8. In the second quarter, his QB rating is 102.9. In the third quarter, his QB rating is 88.9. And in the fourth quarter, his QB rating is 83.9. And you didn't draw any conclusions. You just put that out there, or maybe you retweeted yourself on that. I don't know, but what would be your first thought when you see those numbers? That his basically his best quarter is the first, followed by the second quarter, followed by the third, and his worst quarter is the fourth. And this was just last year. What do you, when you see that? What comes to mind?
It's so strange because it's like he didn't have Ayuk, he didn't have McCaffrey, he didn't have Trent Williams. And that takes a toll. But early in games, he was playing like the Brock Purdy we remember, at least statistically. Later in games, it would fall apart. So I don't really know I'm not saying it's all his fault. Clearly, Kyle Shanahan contributes to that. But the game scripts, wherever they were at this year, like coming from behind, close games, he seemed to struggle toward the end of those. And we think of Brock as being so good because of his processing and decision-making. But this year it wasn't great. And it got like progressively worse as games went on. And he was a big reason they lost some games in the fourth quarter. So I don't really know what to make of it, because I bet if we looked at 2023, his splits were freaking incredible any way you sliced it. But that's how it went last year. And it's another reason I wouldn't be super eager to give him an extension right now. I'd offer him an extension, but if he wanted to get the bag, he'd have to come back and show that was a blip, an aberration.
You know, I guess my takeaway on it just is that I think now maybe it's because of the line, but when the Niners don't have like optionality, I just think that they can't do anything. When everybody knows they need to run, they can't run.
Right.
When
everyone knows they need to pass, they can't pass.
They can't pass.
Right.
They only do well early in games because they haven't fallen behind, and so the run pass is all there for them, and everything's kind of, they're on schedule, they're not behind schedule, and I think in the fourth quarter, especially this year when they were losing games, now everybody knows you need to pass, but you're rocking behind a pretty subpar offensive line, or if people know you need to run. It's like they haven't been able to run for a yard when they need one. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say, because Brock, the turnovers are his. I mean, and he needs to be a whole lot better with the football going forward than he was this year, especially at the end of games. But I don't know. To me, maybe that's a statement of Kyle's offense only works when he's got that run pass thing going, when he's got play action and the defense doesn't know, they can't pin their ears back. But as soon as it's more of a defined situation, it seems like his offense is easy to defend. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
we've seen Brock like early in games when he has that, optionality, as you put it, or when the team is really good, when you have to defend everything honestly, he's really good. Like, and even this season, I'm looking, this is the crazy split to me. First half of games, simple as first half this season, 12 touchdown passes, 2 picks. Two. He was great in the first half this year. That's a 6-to-1 ratio. Then in the second half of the same season, he threw 8 touchdown passes and 10 picks. So some of that is on his offensive line and some of that's on Kyle, but a lot of those picks were bad decisions on his part that where he threw it and you're like, what? Brock? That's not you. But I mean, we also saw that from Justin Herbert in the playoffs and Jared Goff in the playoffs. Like, quarterbacks in the NFL aren't immune to this, and he had such a hot start that maybe we think that he was never going to happen for Brock, but it happens to every quarterback. Lamar Jackson.
And it's funny. I said to Shanahan late in the year, I said, can you coach Brock out of this super aggressive mindset? And he's like, I disagree that he has a super aggressive mindset. And this was on the heels of him throwing the interception in the Rams game where the Rams were playing to take away the deep ball. He had 3 guys open underneath. It was first down. There was plenty of time left in the game, and he blindly threw one while he was taking a rusher to his face down the field and just kind of floated it, and JJ, couldn't get there to basically break it up. So it was like the world's easiest interception. And to me, it was an obvious example of Brock being over aggressive, but Shanahan wouldn't go there. He was like, no, I don't think he's over aggressive. I thought that was interesting that he, wanted to defend him there instead of just being like, hey, you know what? Yeah, he got way too aggressive on that particular play.
I mean, there was the interception late where he like forced the ball to Jawan Jennings in triple coverage. I mean, I remember that one. There were some plays from Brock late in games. It's like, man, you are trying way too hard to get this $60 million a year. It seems like, and he even said it at the end of the year. He's like, you know what? I got to get back to the mindset I had when I was a rookie, when I was just trying to prove that I belonged. Right. Because the mindset you have right now, it seems like, I mean, I'm just guessing, it seems like you're implying is that it's not enough to just do your job. I have to show that I'm special. I have to show that I'm elite, whatever the hell that even means. There is no definition. So it seemed like he was caught up in trying to do a little too much and show, that he's a playmaker when all he really needs to do is execute the offense. He's so good at that.
Yeah. And I think the Chiefs showed in week 7 that you can speed up Brock. And if you speed him up, he's going to make bad or worse decisions. And decision making is a big part of why he's good. So if he starts making bad decisions and you speed him up, effectively, you've done an incredible job. Now, Albert Breer stopped by with Rich Eisen. And in that, I thought that was one of the most interesting sound bites I've heard since the end of the season. He says that Purdy's going to get a Jared Goff deal. First of all, he was very specific. He's like, I think they'll find middle ground. I don't think he'll be the highest paid quarterback. So I think that makes a lot of us feel good because I don't think anybody really wanted to see Brock making $60 million. But then Breer said, hey, they may trade the raw dollars for an extra year of guarantees. And then he said, I think the deal's going to look a lot like the Jared Goff deal. And then he was very specific. He said, he talked about Deebo. I think he's gone. He talked about Hargrave. I think they're going to cut some veterans, so on and so forth. But the Goff deal and comparing it directly to Goff, I thought was really interesting. Goff signed 4 years, $212 million in May of 2024, and I think it was the 6th highest AAV. It wasn't the highest contract in football, but if you adjust for inflation, Purdy's AAV, if it was the Goff deal, would be $56.4 million, which seems to be right in line with what Diana Rossini has been reporting, $55 to $60 million, and what we've heard in the last week or so that a lot of people expect it to be between $55 and $60 million. 56.4 would be his Goff money if he got the exact Goff deal with the inflation.
I'm looking at the Goff deal. If it's the exact Goff deal, Goff's deal is structured strangely. So this year, his cap number is 32.6%. That's 11% of the cap. That's a lot, but not incredible. And then in 2026, it's 69.6 million, 24%. And he has 20 million guaranteed salary.
I mean, averages 20.7% of the cap, which is 13th.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot for Jared Goff, who just freaking melted down in the playoffs. I mean, I'm sure they'd like a new quarterback, or if a really good quarterback with who's mobile on a rookie deal fell in their laps, I'm sure they'd like to get the hell rid of Jared Goff. So I mean, is that a contract you want? I don't know.
I mean, I get the sense that the contract is going to be too high in everybody's eyes, but that it's not going to be the highest. Yeah. That they're going to make him, as we said, as the reporting is, I don't think these reporters are awesome reporters. I think they've been leaked. What I mean? Sorry, I've seen Albert Breer roll into training camp. He's not, it's not like he's got all day to sit there and just kind of figure things out organically. He goes right to somebody and says, tell me what it is. And then, he gets it and then he repeats it. And then he's like, sources say, but he's covering every team in the league. So it's not like they're just going to be like, figure it out for yourself, Al. No, they kind of say, hey, look, this is the deal. The cap's going from 255.4 to 272.5, and we're going to give him a Goff deal and do the math yourself, and that adds up to 56.4 AAV. We'll see. I'll say this, and I've said this a few times, but a bad deal, like some people will say that's a bad deal. Some people would say, oh, come on, man. Brock wouldn't get 56.4 in an open market. Why don't the Niners just let him go find his market and this and that? Because they really don't have the time with the quarterback to play around with this. So it's like the best deal for them would be any deal that they get done between now and April. To me, a much worse deal is almost any deal they get done, but it takes until August.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's such a difficult situation. I feel like
you're going to pay him a lot.
It's hard. It's going to be hard to please 49er fans right now because they want to keep Brock, obviously. Yeah. But at the same time, they don't want to pay him more than $50 million a year. If they sign Brock tomorrow to a contract that averages out to $53 million a year, Niner fans are going to be kind of upset. I mean, some of them may be happy, but I would imagine a lot of Niner fans would be like, really? Are you serious? And I think some people in the organization might feel like that's exorbitant. I mean, he's not coming off an exactly great year. The thing with Dak got $60 million a year. He was second in the MVP voting right before he got that extension. Like, Brock isn't coming off a season like that. So to me, the Niners' initial offer should reflect the season he's coming off of. And if they just give him $60 million a year despite all that, I think a lot of Niners fans would be like, what's up with this team in front office? Are they weak? Do they not? But at the same time, no fan wants Brock Purdy to get alienated or replaced. So what do the Niners do? How do they get this done in the next 2 months?
I know. Well, and it's one of those things too where if you don't want to pay him, okay, fine. But who are you going to go to? What are you moving off to? I don't think, like the options of Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, the younger group of guys, the Mac Joneses, the Zach Wilsons, I think they all are kind of, they're all not as good as staying with Purdy, but that's just my opinion. I mean,
yeah, but if the option is pay Purdy $60 million a year or keep him and sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal, what do you do?
Right. I mean, I don't want any part of Aaron Rodgers, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, okay, if you sign Brock to a $56.4 million deal, what kind of, what does that do to your cap this year? How's it structured exactly? How does it enable you to compete this year? But I think the alternative, the idea that you're going to try to win and have your quarterback not there until training camp or not there until the preseason, I think that's...
Ooh, I have a question. Do you think that Brock would hold out if he didn't get his deal done?
He doesn't seem like a holdout guy.
I don't think he would hold out. That would be dramatic. I mean, that would pretty much end the Niners season before it started. I can't remember any team that won a Super Bowl with a quarterback who held out. That doesn't happen.
No, doesn't happen.
So
I get the sense. Here's the other weird thing that you and I haven't talked about. Shanahan came out a few weeks ago or whatever it was and said, Brock's the only quarterback that I want when I'm here. And it sounds good, right? But I'm wondering, is that because he was told you have 3 years to make it happen or you're gone? And then he just knows that he can't get anybody else in the next 3 years, so they're going to go all in on Brock. Because when I saw the Kawakami article that came out, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm hearing whispers that it might be a shorter term deal." Well, I thought to myself, okay, who wants the shorter term deal? Is it Brock? Probably not. Is it Kyle? Probably not. It might be Jed. It might be Parag, who are looking at their situation going, let's be all in on Brock because he's the best we got right now. Let's be all in on Kyle and John because they're the regime that we have right now. But let's protect ourselves against us winning 10 games total in the next 2 years. What if the Niners go from 6 wins to 5 wins and then win 5 wins again? 2 years from now, it's at that point, I think that Jed may say, you know what, goodbye to Lynch, goodbye to Shanahan. And if you get Brock on a short-term deal, you can at least go and try to attract your next czar of whatever football you're going to, and have a clean slate. You don't have him tied to a quarterback that's won 16 games over the last 3 years, So I don't know. I mean, that was my thought when I saw, hey, it might be a shorter term deal. Do you think a shorter term deal is Jed or Parag or both hedging against the entire commitment so far, that it's Lynch, it's Shanahan, it's Purdy, this is the group? Do you think if they go short term, that's an indication that they may want to go in a different direction 2 years from now?
Maybe. I don't know that Brock Purdy would accept a short term contract extension. He might just want to
have to be big,
come back next year and try to get the deal next year. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, I know it sounds crazy because Jed always talks about how he loves Kyle, loves John, loves everything. But, if I know this, it's going to be easier for them to replace, John and Jed 2 years from now if Brock's struggling and if Brock's struggling and he has a big money long-term deal, it's going to be harder for them to get a coach than and a new direction.
Do you think they'd have to miss the playoffs 2 more years in a row before they get fired?
I would say this year. I think that if Brock gets a 2-year or 3-year deal, that this is year 9. Andy Reid got 13 years in Philadelphia before they.
Okay, so the question you asked me was, why did Kyle say that's the only quarterback he wants? Is it possible that the ownership said to Kyle, hey, this is the last quarterback you're going to get here. You got to make it work with Brock. You're not going to get another 10 years, all right? Make it work with Brock. You've had a bunch of quarterbacks. Either make it work with him or you're out.
I think that's harsh, but I also think it's plausible.
Yeah, it's reality. It's life.
I mean, it's life in the NFL. I mean, look at it this way, Grant. At the end of that point, okay, so 2 more years. That would be, this is year 9, and then we're talking about 2 more years, 9, year 10, year 11. That's 11 years in. That's only 2 less years than Andy Reid had in Philly. I'm just saying, if they did the next 2 years, what they did this year, which was win 5 or 6 games, this year's 6. I think it would probably take 2. It would probably take 3 down years to have Jed pull the plug on the regime. I think he's that wed to John and John and Kyle that it would take a 3-year run where they won like 5, 5, and 6 or whatever before they would be out. I do.
I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. But if they miss the playoffs again next year, I would be very nervous if I was in that organization. Anyone.
But wouldn't, okay, so let's say they miss the playoffs next year. Wouldn't you say that then going into the next year, they would be on a make it or break it kind of a year?
I feel like this is a make it or break it kind of year. But again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I don't. Again,
we're speculating.
I grew up on Eddie DeBartolo, so maybe I'm a little hot headed here. But you missed the playoffs back-to-back years with this team. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Next year's schedule's bad.
But no one expects them to miss the playoffs, right? Easy schedule. They should be good.
Yeah, they should be good. You had a piece recently on Twitter where you said, should the Niners trade Brock Purdy for Trevor Lawrence? Well, I mean, obviously there was some Lawrence discussion last week or the week before about, what's his long-term future there in Jacksonville and the Steeler rumors. Would they trade for him? Would the Jaguars consider trading him? The Jaguars don't even have a GM yet. It may wind up being an ex-49er, Ethan Waugh. It may wind up being Josh Williams. I thought it was interesting that Waugh led the search, but he's also now a candidate. So that seems like he would be a leading candidate. But what was your thought on the idea of trading Purdy for Lawrence? Were you advocating that you would do that, or did you just throw that out
Well, the
as
idea is like if Brock Purdy insists on getting paid $61 million a year and won't take a penny less because he didn't play for that much, he didn't make that much money the last few years. If he's driving like a take it or leave it type of thing, then I mean Trevor Lawrence would be cheaper and he'd be bigger and faster and have a stronger arm. Is he better than Brock? No. But
physically,
would Brock be in a position to make $60 million a year or $50 million a year if he had played for Jacksonville? Probably not, because Jacksonville's awful. So I mean, is Trevor Lawrence? He hasn't done it yet in the NFL, but a lot of quarterbacks most quarterbacks, all but 3 or 4 quarterbacks would look probably pretty bad on Jacksonville because that organization is so bad. So I'd be interested. I think he could be like the next Matthew Stafford, a guy who was in a terrible organization, goes to a good team, actually is good. But I don't know. He hasn't really showed much in the NFL.
That would take bowling balls on both parts. It would take bowling balls on the Niners side. I would take huge guts on the Jacksonville side.
Doesn't it seem like Jacksonville's kind of like not so secretly open to maybe trading him? I mean, what there was a report that the Steelers called. Like, why did they do that? What did they hear?
I mean, yeah, exactly. Where there's smoke, there's typically fire. I mean, I don't know. I'll say this.
Maybe Liam Cohn wants to start over.
Is Trevor Lawrence? I mean, Purdy is Trevor Lawrence is bigger, stronger arm, better body, more projectable. Just better talent. But is Brock the better player? I don't know. I mean,
Brock seems to really love football. Does Trevor Lawrence really love football? I don't know him that well.
Yeah, there are people that are questioning that.
Yeah. I just feel like after this season, after we saw kind of Darnold and in particular Darnold and Baker really kind of flourish on good organizations, and you remember how bad they looked on bad organizations, and you look at Trevor Lawrence, you think it might be the Jaguars. Maybe put him in a different jersey and it's a different outcome.
I don't think I would want to make that trade, but I'll say this. I'd really have to think long and hard about that. I'd have to really do a deep dive on Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence is so talented. He's 6'6" with a gun. He's been on a bad organization. We've seen quarterbacks. Just because you start on a bad organization, I mean, Alex Smith looked horrible in the early days. Steve Young was terrible in Tampa. I mean, we could probably come up with 10 other guys that weren't good initially that became great. So it's the one position where you kind of do evolve. All right, let me just get this read. Larry Krueger here. Of course, BetUS is our sponsor. You can see it right above Grant's head there. You guys know I use BetUS as my official sports book, but did you know they also have an online casino? If you're into slots or live dealer games, you got to check it out. BetUS is everything from timeless classics to the hottest new slots, plus live dealer tables that bring the buzz of the casino straight to your home. So right now, BetUS is offering an amazing sign-up bonus, 200% up to $5,000, or if you're into crypto, a massive 250% bonus up to $5,000. That's free money to play with. So if you're ready to spin your way to some big jackpots, head over to BetUS, sign up, and claim your bonus. And thanks to BetUS for being a proud sponsor of both shows, both the Cohn Zone and the Krug Show. All right, couple more topics that I want to get to. One was the Deebo Samuel situation. I mean, what do you think ultimately happens here, Grant? I don't really think he's worth a whole lot. There's a real disconnect here between the Niners fans and I think reality. I think Niner fans are really sharp and on it most of the time, but they just hold Deebo in a level that I don't think is reasonable or even logical. I mean, I've heard so many people have said, "Oh, you can't trade him in conference. Oh, you can't trade him, for anything less than a third-round pick." And it's like, dude, he's done. He's totally cooked, and he might have one good year left in him, but you're not getting a third-round draft choice for him. And I really don't care where he goes. I mean, I don't care if he goes in the division. It really doesn't bother me. Where are you on Deebo? How do you think? What's the end game on Deebo? Does he ultimately get released, traded? If he's traded, what's he traded for?
I don't see why a team would trade for him because I think it's pretty clear the Niners will cut him if they don't get a trade. So if you just wait, you'll have an opportunity to sign him. Do you really want to trade for that contract and then have the pressure from him and his agent to give him an extension or give him touches so that he can get a good contract somewhere else the next year, I feel like there's no real reason to like why do you need to be the first person to go get Deebo? Just wait till he's a free agent and then offer him $3 million. And if someone beats it, then oh well. Like, who needs a kick returner that bad? What is his skill set really in 2025? Good kick returner.
Yeah, kick returner.
And then I don't know what is he a top 3 wide receiver on a good team? I don't think
you
so.
Mean top 3 in the league or top 3
top 3 on your roster? Like, would he go to the Rams and help them? I don't know. Maybe.
I think he could be going. The place where I think he could be going, Grant, is Denver, because I've heard Sean Payton talk a lot about the joker position, which is the running back, H-back, wildcat quarterback, Taysom Hill, right? And if he can get Taysom Hill, and maybe he'll go for Taysom Hill. But if he can't get Taysom Hill, he might see Deebo as the joker. The other weird one was that Deebo put himself in his story in a Bronco uniform. Was like, look how tough I look, and this and that.
That was desperate.
So that was kind of.
Isn't Marvin Mims kind of like becoming that player though? He's like an all-pro punt returner, and he also is a wide receiver gadget player for him.
Yeah, I mean he is
22.
It's funny though. I saw Peyton in an interview at the end of the year, and he's like, "Man, I'm looking for that joker," and maybe he
said that. Okay.
Yeah, he said he's looking for a joker. And I know he's got Mims. Mims is a home run hitter. Mims is great.
Yeah.
Man, I'd love to have Mims here. Okay, so let's just assume somehow, some way, either by trade or by release, Deebo's gone.
Mm-hmm.
What are the Niners going to do at wide receiver? The Bengals today franchise tag T. Higgins. That should put pretty much an end to the old T. Higgins to the Niners discussion, which was floated by, I think, Mike Lombardi, who said at the Senior
Well, they could
Bowl,
still trade him, right? I mean,
they could trade him.
Didn't the Chiefs franchise tag D Ford before they traded him to the Niners? I believe they did.
Yes, for a second-round pick, which was a terrible deal.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, so what do you think? I mean, okay, first of all, Deebo's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners have to have a receiver. I mean, I don't know. It's not a good receiver draft. They have to. I mean, even if the Niners are successful this offseason, they improve the O-line, they improve the D-line, they're not winning a Super Bowl with JJ, injured Ayuk, Pearsall, and Cowing, right? I mean, I'm not losing my.
Well, you got to remember, Kittle is the number one target in the offense. Kittle is the number one target in the offense. Jennings, I mean, maybe last year was a flash in the pan, but he was a damn good player last year. He doesn't. He's slow and he doesn't create a lot of separation. But in terms of just contested catches, I would say he's a top 5 receiver in the league in terms of just winning at the catch point. That is not a 50-50 ball when it's Jawan Jennings. It's like a 75-25 ball. So respect to Jawan. And I really changed my opinion on Ricky Pearsall. I think he looked very promising toward the end of last season. I think the reason he wasn't getting balls was because Kyle wasn't really calling plays for him. Once he did, he was catching the balls. I think he's going to get a lot of targets this year if he stays healthy. So, yeah, they definitely need to add to the position. But let's say, I mean, they could spend their first-round pick on a wide receiver for the second year in a row. There's going to be some good wide receivers there. Or they could take Tyler Warren from Penn State, who is a very, very interesting player. He could catch a lot of passes. He could play tight end. He could play fullback. I like him. Been watching him a lot. I've never watched a tight end tape like that. He's like wildcat quarterback. They call like tight end draws for him. Like he's a lot of fun to watch. He'd be good.
It's great. Well, I mean, that could be it. I mean, okay, so if you don't have Deebo and Ayuk's not there for half the year, maybe do you go tight end early in the draft? Because as you said, there's some big time guys, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland.
You'd like to get faster on offense, right? You'd like to get faster, but between Jennings and Warren and Kittle, it's like, but still, like those are some great players. And Cowing's fast, Pearsall's fast. You do have some speed. Garendo's fast. I'd be interested in Warren.
Oh no, I love Warren.
He's huge.
Colston Loveland from Michigan is a better runner. Colston Loveland's more like Kelsey. He's lean and he's fast and he's really quick. Yeah. Where Warren is a lot like Gronk. I mean, he really does remind me of Gronk. He's 6'6", he's 250. He's really strong as an inline blocker. But then, as you said, he's a wildcat quarterback, and he's fast enough. We saw him in the college football playoff take a direct snap It looked like he was going to get tackled in the backfield, and then he beat the guy to the corner and got 9 yards out of it. I mean, this guy is
I've never seen a
talent.
tight end do anything like that.
Yeah, he's a real talent. And he's a horse, too. He's strong. He's not like just a receiver. He can blow people off the line. Maybe you draft Tyler Warren and you go 12 personnel a lot of the first half of the year with 2 tight ends, and maybe
I think you could put him at fullback, even though he's 6'6", 260. I think if you watch his tape, a lot of times he's in the backfield as a H-back and just destroying people as a lead blocker.
Well, that's the other question. Do you bring Juice back, or is he a cap casualty?
No, enough, man. Was he going to be 34? Come on. He has to get younger.
I wouldn't bring him back. I mean, bottom line is this. You have a Pro Bowl fullback that's one of the highest paid guys at his position in football, and you can't run for a yard. And you're awful in the low red zone running, and you can't run in short yardage. So to me, this everybody's great talk really has got to end. You talk to Forster, Brendel's great. You talked to Shanahan last year. Campbell's great. Sorensen's great. Everybody's freaking great. But you won 6 games, and you were unimpressive doing it.
And you couldn't score at the goal line. But
couldn't score at the goal line.
You know what Tyler Warren does?
Running.
You know what Tyler Warren does? Score at the goal line.
Yeah.
He's like Marcus Allen. He just jumps over the pile. I love watching his tape. He seems like the kind of offensive weapon that Kyle Shanahan theoretically should be able to maximize. What he could do with this guy, you could put him at 3 different positions: fullback, tight end, slot. I mean, damn, you could call screens for him. He could pass. He's a lefty. He was a quarterback. Kyle likes having those throwback passes. He had them for Jawan Jennings. It would be a lot of fun to have this guy. Now, you don't need a tight end, but who does it? If he's the best player available, tight ends are great ones are hard to find. Your tight end is going to be 32. And when you eventually do have to give him an extension, they're half the price of a wide receiver. There's like every reason in the world to take one if they're really good.
And don't play that game of we don't need a tight end. The Raiders didn't need a tight end last year, but they drafted Brock Bowers. Why? Because he's badass.
Because he's great.
And he was one of the best players in football. And now nobody's saying anything about Michael Mayer. They're talking about Brock Bowers. And the same thing here. It's like, don't tell me that you don't need another tight end, because you only got Kittle. And after that, it's a ghost town of nothingness. And Kittle's 30. And you know what? Here's the bottom line, too. Draft great players. Tyler Warren's a great player. Colston Loveland, these are great players. Draft a great player. Don't tell me about position need. That's
what about
how you
Genty?
wind up with Ricky Pearsall.
What about Genty? He's a great player. So what about him if he's on the board?
I love him, but it's such a loaded running back class that I think there's a few other guys that I think are better value.
Yeah. I think he goes to the Bears. That's my prediction.
Well, I mean, if he should, he should go to Dallas. I mean, if Dallas knows anything, they would be all over him. All right, that being said, let's go to number 11. The Niners have the 11th pick. How do you want to play your hand? Who do you want at 11, or how do you want to play your hand? Do you want to trade back? You want to stay there? How do you want to use the 11th
I want
pick?
Tyler Warren, but I feel like the fact that the Niners haven't really addressed the offensive line, or the fact that they committed themselves to Trent Williams, and now he's got these ankle issues. You don't really know how much he's going to play. I almost feel like they have to take an offensive tackle if one is available and he's good. So they have to take a real hard look at Kelvin Banks and Armand Membu in particular. But there's a high probability that neither one of those guys is going to be the best player available, and you'd like to take the best player available. I keep going back and forth. Like, you can't keep putting off offensive tackle forever. And the reason they said they didn't take one last year, you were there. They're like, well, we'd like to, but picking where we pick at 31 often isn't the greatest offensive tackles. Right. So now you're picking at 11, and you may not be picking here anytime soon again if you're back in contention. So again, if you see one you like, this might be the time you have to do it, which is too bad. But it's also life in the NFL.
Yeah, the guy that you just mentioned there, Membu, is really intriguing. Now we'll see if the Niners sign Drew Dahlman in the offseason and free agency and go that route. But Membu is intriguing. He's just, Dane Brugler had a guy the other day who said a scout came up to him and said he's the best offensive lineman he's seen is Membu. And, this guy is really the film I saw of him, I couldn't believe how good he was. I mean, he's just got really long arms. He's only 20. He doesn't turn 21 for another 2 months. And we're going to find out at the combine his exact measurements, but 6'3", 315, I think is
Be a big upgrade over
probably-
McKivitz. It'd be a big upgrade over McKivitz.
He could be a plug and play, excellent right guard, right
Yeah.
tackle, and then him
Him and Puni next to each other. Wow.
This guy's really a difference maker. I mean, Missouri, and we saw it with Aldon Smith, and we've seen it with a couple of Missouri's prospects, Nick Bolton and others. They get some awesome prospects. I mean, they really do. Missouri is kind of like a Bama, an LSU, a Georgia. They get some crazy high.
The wide receiver is really good too, Luther Burden.
Luther Burden is a great player.
The Niners take him to replace Deebo. I mean, don't underestimate Kyle Shanahan's love and commitment to the wide receiver position.
God, I really hope they don't go wide receiver because that just seems like 2
years in a row.
They need one. They need one, and Burden's great. But man, I mean,
look. Well, we've heard Forster say it himself. The Niners' offensive line coach said it himself on the record. Look, I tell Kyle all the time: invest in guys who scored touchdowns. Just give me starters. You can find those guys in round 4 or 5.
Right, and
the fact that they found Purdy in round 3 is going to embolden them to wait again. That's my bold prediction.
I think you're right. I totally think you're right. You're right, because they if you did a redraft, I saw a redraft of last year's draft the other day, and Dom Puni was the number 1 offensive lineman drafted, and he went in the 3rd round. So
he had a higher grade than Joe Alt from Pro Football Focus,
right? Who went 5 or something like that to Harbaugh
and had a great year.
Yeah, but Puni was that much better, and I think he faded. To be completely honest, at the end of the year, I think even Dom would tell you he faded, but I think next year he'll be incredible. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what so you're thinking what at 11? You're thinking offensive line. There's also a lot of talk about Mason Graham, and
no, I just talked my way. Yeah, it's not going to be offensive line because of what the offensive line coach said and the success they had in round 3 last year. So it'll either be something out of left field like a wide receiver or a tight end or a defensive lineman.
Yeah. Defensive tackle seems almost likely. To me, I think I just look at that Mason Graham as just an instructional video, and I think they're going to sit there and go, "Oh,
they would take
we gotta have Mason Graham."
He would fit the wide 9. He's 320. He could hold up in the run game. He would push the pocket. He'd be perfect. But I don't know if he'll be there at 11. If he is, I think they would take him for sure.
Yeah, he's very polished.
My question is Walter Nolan, 293. Does he fit the wide 9? I think he would fit like the Rams front, but that's a 5-man front with one-on-ones.
He's a pass rusher. I mean, I'll say this. He was 2nd in the league as far as PFF against the run. But, I'm a little concerned by 293. I'll tell you the guy that's really intriguing to me is Mason Graham's tag team partner there at Michigan, Kenneth Grant, because I watched the Ohio State-Michigan game again a few weeks ago, and that guy dominated. And they both did. But Kenneth Grant is huge and fast and really intriguing. So, I mean, I'd be fine with the Niners trading back from 11 into the 20s and taking Kenneth Grant, starting their draft that way. But we'll see the way it goes.
That would be kind of cool, a trade down of 5 to 10 spots in round 1. I would be into that.
Yeah, because, the bottom line is this. In some people's eyes, the guy you get at 25 is the same guy you're getting at 11. So if you can actually pick up a couple of day 2 picks or a day 2 pick and a day 3 pick and move down a few spots and still get the guy you want, I mean, that's the way to play it, I would think.
That being said, though, like I don't know how you do it as a former scout. I saw Matt Miller on ESPN. Like, you know how people talk about how many first-round grades they give out? Guys who would be first-rounders any year.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Miller said he gave out 12 this year. So if there's only 12 and you're drafting 11, you can guarantee you're going to get one of your first-round guys. Whereas last year they took Pearsall, who clearly didn't have a first-round grade on their board, but they were picking 31st. So that, I mean, if there's someone you freaking love at 11, great. But don't take the next McGlinchey. Don't take the next Kinlaw.
You retweeted this list, and I commented on it. You said Matt Miller gave out 12 first-round grades this year. Here are the 12 first-rounders. And for those who don't know, he took out the quarterbacks, basically. It's Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, Mason Graham, Jalon Walker, Ashton Jeanty, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Warren, Jahdae Barron, Colston Loveland, Mikael Williams from Georgia. And he comped them to somebody each. Yep. And it's like, it was a really interesting tweet because some of those, first of all, Travis Hunter, they compared to a wide receiver. I don't even think he's going to play wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I was thinking he's going to play corner.
He's going to play corner. He said he's going to. So that one's weird. They're saying he's Odell Beckham. He's not Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham's got amazing ball skills and not nearly the speed of Travis Hunter. So I didn't love that comp. But There are several in here that were really, really good. The one that really opened my eyes was the Texas corner Barron, and they were comparing him to Brian Branch. Grant, I don't know how you feel, but man, the Niners, yeah, they have a lot of needs on defense, but they got to find themselves their version of Brian Branch. You know, that super violent slot corner defender who can play everywhere and kills people in the run and pass. And if Jahdae Barron is really, he won the Thorpe Award for the best DB in the nation. If he really is Brian Branch, man, I got to look at him in round 2.
My comparison for Jahdae Barron would be Jimmy Ward.
Which would be great. I love Jimmy Ward.
Jimmy Ward. I think he'd be a great fit. Yeah, the kind of guy who could play pretty much any position in the secondary.
Yeah, yeah. So of that group that he has there, those top 12, you know, assuming 5 or 6 of them fell to you, because, I mean, obviously he's saying that they're not going 1 through 12. We know that because we know the quarterbacks are going to go in there somewhere.
Which is good news for the 49ers.
Of that list of guys in the top 12, who you excited about?
Okay, well, here's my prediction on what they do. I think Mason Graham will get picked. My prediction, I could be wrong. I think that would be the pick. If he's not there, I think they would take a D end. I think they would take one of the guys from Georgia, either Michael Williams or Jalen Walker, and maybe they take Michael Williams. It's gonna be interesting to see how those guys test at the combine, because I feel like some teams, the Packers are one of them, the Eagles are another one. They just draft edge rushers based on traits. They don't really care about your production in college. Like, are you 6'5"? Are you 260? Did you run a 4.5? Okay, Rashawn Gary's an example of that. He didn't exactly tear it up at Michigan, but they drafted him based on traits, and he's a good player now. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners did something like that at 12. I mean, Michael Williams is built like Alden Smith.
Shamar Stewart from A&M is also 285 pounds and had a great all-star game. He could be an edge rusher for them. Yeah, Jalen Walker is the guy that I think I'd have a hard time passing. He won the Butkus Award. He could be their D4. I mean, he could be a D4. He could be Dre Greenlaw. I mean, he could be either. I mean, he could be either really, one. Really special.
He's that good. Kind of a Michael Parsons type of a player, and the guy who could be an edge or an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, or Devin White. I mean, Devin White is kind of faded, but man, Devin White there for a while was the best linebacker in football and led the Bucs to a Super Bowl.
I don't think you can go wrong taking a player from the Georgia defensive front seven. The Eagles do that all the time. Seems to work.
No, yeah, it's worked well. Yeah. Okay, a lot of people are saying the Niners need to sign Drew Dahlman. Give me a free agent that if I said to you, you know what? You can go sign 1 or 2 free agents of significance, because we don't know how this Purdy contract is going to pencil out. But if it pencils out favorably in year 1, it may enable the 49ers to actually make a significant addition in free agency, which is also why I think it's going to get done before free agency. So I think, March 1st to March 12th, I think somewhere in that window, Purdy's deal gets done before free agency, which would be great because it would allow them to know what they have to spend. Who do you want to spend it on?
I don't want to spend it on Dre Greenlaw, and I would let him go, even though he's like the heart and soul of the team. I love that, but I don't know that he can make it through a game, let alone a season, without getting hurt again. And I would rather let him go somewhere else to a team that's younger and can sort of take that risk and sign Jamian Sherwood, who was the weak side linebacker for solid the last few years and on the Jets. He just led the league in solo tackles. He seems like a good player. I think he even tore his Achilles a few years ago, but he's younger and probably cheaper. So I would like to see him go get a weak side linebacker, a starting weak side linebacker who's a little younger than Greenlaw, and then a free safety. Like, instead of, they're probably going to let Talanoa Hufanga go. And they could sign Julian Blackmon, who is the free safety for the Colts. Gus Bradley's the connection. Now he's over here. They got to address the middle of their defense. And they probably should sign a D tackle too. If they want to go out and get DJ Jones, you already know he fits the defense. He might be too expensive, but that'd be a hell of a signing. Those 3 guys right up the middle of your defense.
Yeah, I love those. I like your idea of Javon Holland from Oregon. Yeah. I mean, first of all, he's got the local ties. He's one of the youngest free agents in the entire marketplace.
Bishop O'Dowd, baby.
Yeah, he's Bishop O'Dowd. I mean, that's a great sign too. Local guy, maybe would be even willing to take a few less ducats to come back here. So he'd be one guy. DJ Jones, I love, and I've been won over by the Dahlman the Drew Dahlman idea, just because I really do think the 49ers have to come out of this draft. They got to be better at the point on both sides. They got to be better stopping the run through the A gap, and they got to be better running the ball in the low red zone. I mean, and they could go for an offensive guard, but they're probably going to be more of a day 3 type pick. If you get Drew Dahlman, you get a starter and a guy. Yeah, you're going to have to pay him significant dollars, but I think Dahlman, DJ Jones, and Javon Holland would be my 3 free agents if I could have.
Let's talk about Dahlman for a second. He's interesting. I feel like there's going to be a robust market for him because he's a great scheme fit for the Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur offense, and that's very prevalent in the league. Like Seattle needs a center. They just got Clint Kubiak. They got Clint Kubiak, right? Who they get? Yeah. That's a team that could want him as well. So to get Drew Dahlman, that could be 4 years, $50 million.
Yeah, pardon? Seattle wants to re-emphasize. They got rid of Ryan Grubb, and they're trying to re-emphasize the run game now.
Right. So there's going to be competition for his services. If they want to get him, it'll probably be 4 years, $50 million, which is great. I mean, invest in your offensive line. And I know they'll say, well, we're investing in the quarterback. We're spending all this money on Brock. All the more reason to invest in the offensive line. I don't see how you can do one without the other, because that's what the Colts tried to do with Andrew Luck, and it ruined his career. I mean, you really have to protect your investment.
Yeah, I mean, that to me makes perfect sense. As far the other part of this, the one thing that we don't know right now is we don't know who in the league are going to be cap casualties, which could, add to the free agent market. And what do you think of these names? Because I read an article today on cap casualties in the league, and these were the 3 names that they had. They had Von Miller is potentially going to get cut by Buffalo, who's obviously a little long in the tooth. You have Zadarius Smith, who they say the Lions may wind up cutting. And that's interesting because, I mean, Zadarius Smith is a really talented guy. And who was the third guy they had there? Let me see if I can. Joey Bosa. They said, or Jair Alexander with Green Bay and Joey Bosa. Bosa's got a $36.4 million cap hit, according to Over the Cap. It's the highest cap hit for any edge rusher in the league this year, by the way. And he has only played in 28 of the 51 regular season games over the past 3 seasons, with 14 sacks combined over the last 3 years. But Bosa, Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, you interested in any of these guys as cap casualties if they get cut?
Not really, because instead of like bringing in another veteran corner to replace Isaac Yiadom, I'd like to see Darrell Luter Jr. get a chance, because the Niners have had so many corners leave who never really got a real shot and then go elsewhere and flourish. So I don't know. I mean, Steve Wilks handpicked him. Steve Wilks really knows DBs. I'd like to see. We've seen Darrell Luter Jr. in practice. You liked him. I liked him. I like to see. So I know that wasn't really answering your question, but if they're going to get someone, not a corner, I want to see the young guy play a little bit of corner.
Somebody suggested yesterday on Twitter that he's not playing because of roster politics. I kind of pushed back and said, I don't know that it's roster politics, because I just don't see what would be the advantage to sitting anybody who can play. I think it has more to do with kind of an obscure bone bruise that he had on the knee that just took a long time to heal. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I love Luter, and I loved his college film. And to me, he seems smart. He's mature. He's talented. He played a ton of man at South Alabama. It's like, this guy's got to find his way to the field this year. I don't know. And if they wind up cutting him and he goes somewhere else and becomes Sam Womack, I'm going to grill Lynch badly on that one, because you can't let Deshaun Jameson go 1 year, the next year let Sam Womack go, and the next year lose Darrell Luter, and then still be signing corners late in the year. So
when it comes to the roster politics, though, I think there is something to that. I think Kyle in particular tends to play the player who's getting paid over the guy who isn't. So Devondre Campbell playing over D. Winters all year. What was that about? Well, the Niners were paying Devondre Campbell a lot of money. And on a lot of teams, it's like, it doesn't matter. Who don't care if you're giving you $5 million, $10 million, we're playing the best player. But I think a lot of times with Kyle, it's like, well, Jed's, I don't know what the rationale is, but it's almost like he's trying to justify the fact that he got Jed to spend the money. I mean, he was legitimately starting Tevin Coleman over Raheem Mostert in the Super Bowl, even though everyone knew Raheem Mostert was better than Tevin Coleman. Why? They've done this for a while, and certain ex-players have talked about it. I don't know if it's as simple as roster politics, but there's something businessy about it that I don't quite understand.
To me, if you said, give me one 49er who's going to break out in 2025, I would say Luter. That would be the guy I'd say. Now, some people would say Pearsall. Maybe some might say Garendo or somebody else, but I think it's Darrell Luter. I think he'll bust out this year.
I think Malik Mustafa could have a Pro Bowl season. That guy.
Oh, how good
I like Malik.
Oh,
he's good.
So good. He's so good. Okay, couple last thoughts.
Renardo too. Renardo is good. That was a nice little draft they had last year. Renardo was good.
Well, I would love.
He should have been playing more last year.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
He's going to start this year, right? He'll start next to Lenore. Yeah,
no doubt. Not only will he start, I think he'll star.
I think so too.
I think Mustafa is maybe one of the most physical young safeties in the entire league. And if they could find one more kind of super,
if they add Jahdae Barron in 11, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it at all.
I mean, if he's Brian Branch, I'm all for it.
I know it's not the trenches, but he looks really good.
I mean, that's the one thing. The wild card at 11 might be Malachi Starks. You know, another Georgia kid who was just an amazing player, and he's a free safety. And it's like, well, how high do you draft a safety? Well, I don't know. I mean, Ronnie Lott was drafted pretty high, but he played corner, at first and then safety. But a lot teams don't like to draft safeties high unless they're stars. But
if you take a nickel that high, is a nickel more valuable than a safety? I mean, safeties get paid more than nickels.
I think the nickel is incredibly vitally important. I mean, look at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The Eagles went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago with him. Then they kissed him off. He went to Detroit. They were horrendous on the back end. Then they got him back this year. They were the number one defense in football, and he's making big plays. So obviously he's got help. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, their whole front, Bond, and the whole rest.
Cooper DeJean, super big impact player. Trent McDuffie, slot guy. I mean, Diamondor Lodor just got paid because of that ability, and it'd be nice to have more than one guy who could do it.
No question. Because when you don't have this piece, it really is costly.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Saleh, according to what I read this week, I don't know if this is accurate, but Robert Saleh is adamant that he wants the Niners to re-sign Dre Greenlaw. Is this Robert Saleh trying to be popular with Fred Warner, who's his most important defensive player, who will wear the green dot, who he's going to have lots of dialogue with? Is he taking one for the team because Fred wants Dre back? Or do you think Saleh sees? I'll say this. I would love Greenlaw to be back, but Grant, it has to be at the right price. Like, the Niners let two free agents walk, and I loved them both, and yet I had different feelings on both. One was DJ Jones. Loved DJ Jones, but he got paid $30 million, and you had to say goodbye. The other was Jimmy Ward. He got 1 year, $6 million from Houston, and the Niners said goodbye. If Dre Greenlaw gets a 3-year, $24 million deal, you wave goodbye and you wish him well. Yeah. But if he gets a 1 year offer for $6, $7, or $8 million, I think you bring him back, you draft some young linebackers, and you let him pass that kind of the Niner way, their standard, whatever you want to call it, down to the young guys. I think you got to have a little bit of that. And if Greenlaw, I like Sherwood and some of these other linebackers, Willie Gay. There's a few interesting linebackers, but none of them are going to be the culture setter like Greenlaw. And I think you got to go attack it in the draft anyway. What's your thought? You've already said that you don't want Greenlaw back, but I know what you meant. I mean, you have nothing against Dre. You just
1 year, $6 million. That's fine.
Right.
But 3 years, now you can't keep it. You can't keep investing in older players coming off these injuries. And I think you're asking, why did Saleh say this? You got to remember that if and when Dre Greenlaw leaves, that's going to be like a big blow to the locker room. They love him. Yeah. And it's not just Fred Warner. It's the whole team. It's Nick Bosa. He said it's his favorite player he's ever played with. So if he leaves and gets a big money deal somewhere, I think they'll understand it, although it'll still hurt. But if he leaves and gets like a minor deal somewhere else, it could piss players off. And I don't think Robert Saleh wants to be seen as the guy who orchestrated that. So he's like, I am the biggest Greenlaw fan. Sure, but it's still business.
It's going to be interesting. The fact that he says he's adamant, I wonder if that will move the needle. And then Boston College's secondary coach, Ray Brown, was hired this week as the Niners' new cornerback coach. And it makes me wonder if Donovan Ezeraku, who's an excellent Boston College edge rusher, maybe a Niner draft pick in the second or third round with Brown coming over. Now, Brown didn't coach him per se, but he was coached defense on a defense where this guy dominated up front. Any thoughts on the new Niner cornerback coach? I guess what he replaces Brandon Staley to some degree, who kind of did this a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's curious how he landed on the Niners' radar in the first place, considering he's been a college DB coach since 2010. So Robert Saleh must have a good eye, but I think what you brought up is key. He was at Boston College, so he was working for Bill O'Brien. Maybe that's the connection, NFL coach. And then there's a couple of players from Boston College who are going to get drafted in day 2 this year. The edge rusher you just said, and an offensive Ozzy, someone or other. What's that dude's name?
Trapillo.
Yes. Trapillo. And I looked him up, and guess who they compare him to on NFL.com in his draft profile?
Pooney?
McKivitz.
Wow.
So this guy might be someone the Niners like. You know what I mean? They like McKivitz. So it's possible that usually the Niners coaches are heavily involved in the drafting process, and maybe Saleh wants an insider's opinion on those two players or the defensive player in particular.
Last one, quarterback. Brock's your one. I would imagine Dobbs is gone, and I would imagine Brandon Allen, even though he has Brock's same agent, probably is also gone. And they got Tanner Mordecai, so they're probably looking for a quarterback. I bring this up because what would you like to see in that other quarterback? Somebody's like, Krug, you're obsessed with the number 2 quarterback. It's like, no, I'm not obsessed with the number 2 quarterback. I'm obsessed with the Niners getting back to the playoffs, and the only way they won't get back there with next year's schedule is if Brock gets hurt and their number 2 quarterback stinks. So I kind of do want a veteran number 2 quarterback, but I did see that the Niners met with a Canadian quarterback who I watched on film last night, Grant, and I would encourage everybody to go watch this guy. He played for Laurier, which is he's from Ontario. He's from London, Ontario. He played in Canada. He's a 6'6", 215-pound quarterback who throws the hell out of the ball. His name's Taylor Elgersma, and he did get invited to the Senior Bowl. He was an academic, all-Canadian guy, so he's a smart guy. He's obviously a big kid who's very athletic. He's got big hands. And he throws the heck out of the football. And I'm just telling you, go watch this guy, Taylor Elgersma. I have a feeling that he might be their quarterback. They did meet with him already. He might be a draft pick for them. What I've heard names like Flacco and Andy Dalton, and I'm cool with that. I'm okay with Andy Dalton or Flacco as the number 2 next year. Who would you like to see in that QB room outside of Brock?
I don't want them to do what they did last year, where they brought in a stiff who fits their system. I don't give a damn if the quarterback has the same style of play as Brock Purdy, if he's going to go in and lose, like Brandon Allen. So What I think is the move that every team needs to do, you see it from the Patriots to the Packers. I think your backup quarterback should be a dual threat quarterback, not just a mobile guy, but a guy who's a runner. And I think you should be developing him. That should be your project. I think every team should have that project, because if it hits and you end up getting Jalen Hurts, then all of a sudden you have the ultimate weapon in football. I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is the ultimate weapon in football, but as we've seen, mobile, true dual threat quarterbacks are pretty impossible to stop. I think the Niners should have one. I think the fact that the Packers have Malik Willis is genius, and it worked for them. I mean, he won games for them. You're a run-first team. He can add to that. I'd like to see the Niners go after someone like Trey Lance. Just kidding. I was thinking Justin Fields. I actually really like Jalen Milroe, and I wouldn't draft Jalen Milroe in round 2, and I wouldn't trade up for Jalen Milroe. But if he's just hanging around waiting for you when you have your comp pick at the end of round 3, I mean, he might be the best athlete in the class. He's going to run a 4.3 at like 225 pounds. Be an interesting project to have. But Justin Fields, if he wants the job, that'd be who I'm interested in.
I would be intrigued by Milroe if he were projected on day 3, but I can't go day 2. He looked really raw at the Senior Bowl, but I agree with you. He's 6'1", he's 220. He runs exceptionally well. He's really, really athletic. Some of the best throws he's made are as good as any throw you've seen from any quarterback all year. I'll say three names that people should keep their eyes on. One is Riley Leonard, Notre Dame, who's runs really well at 6'3", 210. He doesn't throw it great, but he runs really well. The other is Peyton Thorne from Auburn, whose dad and grandfather, I think, both played football, and he's super fast, super athletic, 6'1", 210, the Auburn quarterback. And I guess the third guy would be this guy's El Gurzma, who seems like he moves pretty well as well. Okay, good stuff. Let's hit the supers, and then I got to ask you what you thought of the NBA All-Star Weekend. Lamont says, why is Moody still on this team? How many games he cost us last season? If Brock thinks he's the one, he will not move off of $60K, but if he knows he is mid.
60K? 60 mil.
60 mil, yeah, I think he meant.
That's a lot. That's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Moody.
Tyler says, favorite show of the week. Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
G-Code Travels Vlog says, hey, Trent Baalke, how will you handle Purdy's contract? I really love Brock and his knee problems and I wish he had torn the ACL, Lowry.
He's done.
Trent Baalke. But Ethan Waugh has learned his lesson. If you're gonna interview some candidates, make sure you're one of them. And then you can always say, you know what? I think you ought to hire me, Shad Khan.
Do you think he interviewed himself? Let's role play this.
But
he just ran back and
he
forth.
interviewed Josh Williams, and if Williams gets the job, Niners get 2 third-round picks. So I'm kind of rooting for Williams just on that alone. Dazza says, how does paying Brock $50 to $60 million get the Niners closer to a ring? He couldn't get it done on a rookie contract, and the Niners seem unwilling to significantly upgrade their O-line. Well, yeah, I mean, the whole
I agree with that. If you invest in Brock, you got to invest in the O-line too. It's not just that's why it's so expensive. It's not just paying Brock; it's paying the offensive lineman too.
Yeah, you can sit there.
It's getting Dahlman too in the same offseason.
You want to redo your home and have some really nice house, great, but you better have security. You better have.
And you know what? System. You know what? When they signed Jimmy, once upon a time, 2018, they made him the highest paid player in the league for like 2 seconds. The same offseason, they signed Weston Richburg. So maybe they'll do it again.
Little Drew Dahlman action right
Purdy
there.
Combo?
Maybe they'll get Brock to take less and spend that money on the O-line or a receiver. I mean, if I was him, if I was going to take less, I would want some help. Boxing fan ×4 said, thoughts on Torrey Horton, Pat Bryant, and Kyle Williams. I haven't studied Horton. Bryant is interesting. He made a number of plays. He looks a little like not spectacular, but like a real solid route runner, Illinois kid. Kyle Williams, I got to study a little bit more.
He cost the Niners a Super Bowl appearance. I wouldn't take him. I wouldn't take him.
Something tells me he might fumble 3 times. Just to picture. I can picture it. All day, every day, Kim. Kyle, stay away from quarterbacks who need development.
Damn, you bring up a good point.
Get finished products. Brock, did Kyle coach Brock, or was Brock a finished product?
Brock was a finished product.
Totally finished.
Which brings me back to Justin Fields. He's been in the league for a little while. He's gotten steadily better. He hasn't been on a team like the Niners. I'm curious. He may not want to be signed up to be Brock's backup. Maybe he'll have better options than that. But looking at what Jalen Hurts did on that team and that system, like the Colts should bring in Justin Fields. He very easily could be better than Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. But I don't know. I don't really care about the Colts.
Justin Fields at times looks great, but in the red zone, he processed so slowly that it was almost like he couldn't complete a single pass.
Then make him a running back in the red zone. Turn him into Josh Allen in the red zone. You know what I mean?
He's got 4-4 flat speed, and he's got a good arm.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. What do you think of the NBA All-Star weekend? Either any part of it. I saw something that showed a graphic that showed that if you added in the commercials and the breaks, there was 2 hours and 26 minutes on Sunday of commercials and breaks, and only 33 minutes and 41 seconds of actual All-Star game time. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on with the NBA, but it was a very forgettable weekend in San Francisco. What did you think?
I don't know. I mean, everyone's complaining about it. I feel like the All-Star game usually kind of sucks anyway. It's too bad that the dunk contest isn't even fun anymore. That used to be really fun, but at least they did a good job, I thought, of like highlighting the Bay and making us look good and kind of cool, because we've been getting some real bad publicity for a long time, and it's nice to see the NBA just sort of celebrate our region. I like that. That was pretty cool.
I loved the all the different shots of the city because, they took some amazing shots and it made the city look really, really good. They obviously did it on sunny days. I didn't like
and all the different artists from the region that they brought out. Like that, the NFL should do stuff like that. That was pretty cool.
The only thing is just that it's like, there's something they got to figure out the game. I don't know what's going to happen. I
felt like such a boomer watching that game. I'm like, what the hell is this? I didn't know it's a tournament. I was like, I'm too old for this.
They're trying to do different things.
I don't want to learn new things at 37.
Well, they're trying to get people to play hard. And
yeah,
it's like the
NFL.
NFL.
That's never going to happen.
The NFL, nobody was playing hard in the Pro Bowl, but they didn't try to get them to play hard. They just canceled the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And, and that the NBA ought to do the same thing. It's like, do what the NFL did, right? Do a bunch of games and this and that. It's kind of outlived its usefulness. I'm not sure why, but I think it just has. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Hour and 15 minutes in. Grant, what do you got cooking the rest of the day or rest of the week? When the stream is tomorrow morning with Pops?
Stream is tomorrow morning with Pops. Just a light week from home and then full-blown Indianapolis for a week. I'm going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to bring a stopwatch, binoculars, and I'm going to be experiencing the culture that Indianapolis has to offer, the cuisine, the people.
Okay,
Maybe I'll just be going up to people interviewing on the street. I don't even know, but I'm excited.
I've only been there one time, one combine, but it's a great event. And you should definitely do it. You got to hit St. Elmo's.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah, you got to have the
St. Elmo Steakhouse.
Big,
thing about it too, I think like a lot of the executives and coaches and GMs will be there every night, kind of schmoozing.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah,
and you know what? At the combine, if you're having a couple pops in one of these steakhouses at the bar, you're gonna see somebody who's big time who's gonna talk. So I mean, seriously, it's a great spot.
Do you think Kyle will go? No, I don't think you will either. But I think Lynch will. Yeah.
Lynch, RJ Gillen, Tariq Ahmad, Josh Williams.
Yeah. Salah?
That's it. Salah could go.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Salah could go.
Get to congratulate him.
And it should be interesting. And when is it? It starts Monday? Our week from Monday?
I think the first, there's interviews Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm flying in Monday, interviews Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are all the testing.
Have fun, man. Have fun. That'll be fun. Yeah. That does it for us. Thanks to Grant. Thanks to BetUS. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Like and subscribe on both channels. You don't need to subscribe to Grant because you're already subscribed, but some of Grant's people, you can subscribe over here. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been